The old man leaned heavily on his cane, squinting, as the unrelenting sun casts a harsh glow over the dusty road. His breath was short and shallow, but his eyes remained sharp, scanning the horizon for any signs of movement. It had been a long time since anyone had ventured this far out into the wasteland. His name was Marcus, the keeper of the last library on Earth and a survivor of the devastating cleaning crew. Marcus had spent his life collecting and preserving the knowledge of the ancients, hoping that one day, it might serve a purpose beyond nostalgia. The world had changed when the cleaning crew dispatched their ships to cleanse the Earth and the rest of the solar system, luckily missing Earth with their barrage of deadly shots. And with it, the thirst for knowledge had diminished to a mere trickle. Even though the cleaning crew wiped many of the inhabitants of Earth, there was enough life to not give up. So, Marcus remained steadfast in his belief that there was still value in the written word, that somewhere, someone might find a way to rebuild the thirst for knowledge from the ashes, even if he was thousands of miles away from the next human. As he shuffled through the ruins of what once was a bustling city, the echoes of his footsteps seemed to mock the silence. The metal skeletons of skyscrapers loomed over him, a stark reminder of humanity's former grandeur. The air was thick with the scent of decay and the occasional whiff of something that had once been alive but now lay lifeless. Marcus paused, his hand resting on the worn leather of his book satchel. It contained his most precious finds, books that had survived the ravages of time and destruction. In the distance, a glint of light caught his eye. It was a reflection, a beacon of hope in the desolate landscape. He approached cautiously, the anticipation building with each step. As he drew closer, he realized it was a metal plate, half buried in the sand. It bore an inscription, the letters almost illegible from weathering. Project Phoenix, the future of humanity. His heart raced. Could it be? Had he stumbled upon the fabled underground city that was rumored to hold the last vestige of civilization? He cleared the sand away, revealing a rusted handle. With trembling hands, he pulled it open, revealing a staircase leading into the bowels of the earth. The air grew cooler. And the smell of dampness filled his nostrils. He descended slowly, his cane tapping out a rhythm on the cold, metallic steps. The darkness grew around him, but he wasn't afraid. After all, he had spent his life navigating through the shadows of forgotten wisdom. The light grew dimmer as he descended, but the excitement in his chest burned brighter with each step. His eyes searched the darkness for any signs of life, for any indication that he wasn't alone in this quest for knowledge. The air grew stale, and the silence was deafening. Yet, he could almost hear the whispers of the ancients, urging him onward. He was so close, so very close to discovering the truth behind the myth. Finally, the staircase opened up into a vast chamber. The floor was lined with solar panels, their surfaces cracked and dull. The walls were adorned with screens, now dark and lifeless, but Marcus knew what they once held. The echo of his footsteps grew louder as he moved towards the center of the room, where a large console stood, dormant. His heart pounded in his chest. Could it be? Had he found the key to unlocking the secrets of the past? With a trembling hand, he reached out to touch the dusty surface. The console hummed to life, lights flickering and screens flickering into existence, astounded that there even is electricity. Now a loading screen appeared, barely visible from the flickering of the screens. At least it's readable, said Marcus to himself. After the loading ended, Marcus didn't expect to stumble upon a treasure trove, a digital library that contained the sum of human knowledge before the world had gone to crap. His eyes filled with tears, a mix of joy and sorrow. The weight of the world's forgotten knowledge rested heavily on his shoulders. He knew he had to share this with others, to give hope to those who had lost it, but first, he had to make sure it was safe. He had to protect it from those who would seek to control it. Marcus knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed allies, people who understood the value of what he had found. And so, his eyes lit up, ready to find a way to bring this library with him. A USB stick, of course. Yelled Marcus, grabbing it from the table next to him and copying all the data with him. And so, he set out from the library, his satchel of books now replaced with a USB stick filled with the promise of a new dawn. His journey was far from over, and the fate of humanity rested in his grip. The wasteland had changed him, hardened him, but also filled him with a newfound determination. Marcus knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and challenges, but he also knew that he couldn't do it alone. He needed a crew, a band of survivors who shared his vision for the future, who were willing to fight alongside him to ensure that the knowledge of the ancients didn't die with the last whispers of the past. In the early days, he encountered only scavengers and marauders. Desolate souls who had long ago forgotten the value of knowledge. He kept to the shadows, avoiding confrontation, his heart heavy with the weight of his secret. But as he traveled further, he began to encounter others who had survived the cleaning crew, individuals who clung to the hope of a better tomorrow. One by one, he gathered them: a young engineer who could fix almost anything with a piece of wire and some duct tape, a former librarian whose passion for books was only rivaled by her fiery spirit, and a mysterious traveler with a strange device that could detect the faintest traces of life. Together, they formed a ragtag band of knowledge seekers, each bringing their own skills and stories to the table. Their journey was marked by moments of triumph and tragedy. They discovered small pockets of civilization, communities that had managed to survive the apocalypse by the skin of their teeth. Some welcomed them with open arms, eager to share their knowledge and resources. Others, fearful of the power Marcus's USB stick contained, saw them as a threat and turned them away. But with each step, Marcus's resolve grew stronger. He knew that the road ahead was long, and that the cleaning crew would not rest until they had eradicated every trace of humanity. He had to be ready to face them, to stand as a bastion of hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. And so, he and his newfound crew pushed onward, sharing what they knew and learning from those they met, building a network of like-minded individuals who were ready to stand up against the forces that sought to extinguish the last embers of human intellect. The horizon grew closer, promising new adventures and dangers, but also the chance to rekindle the flame of knowledge. Marcus, the old librarian, had become a beacon in the wasteland, guiding others toward the light. And with every step, every new member of his crew, he grew more hopeful that together, they could rebuild the world from the ashes of its destruction. Their first task was to craft the knowledge pod, their most valuable creation. They scavenged through the remnants of the old world, piecing together salvaged tech and forgotten gadgets. The young engineer's ingenuity shone as she repurposed the materials they found into a device that could bring the digital library to life, projecting the data whenever and wherever you want. It was a simple contraption, powered by solar panels and a makeshift battery and impressive circuit trickery, but to Marcus and his crew, it was a treasure beyond compare, allowing them to study ancient texts while on the go. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, as they tinkered and toiled. They built a feeder that could transmit all the necessary nutrients to them with little to no power. They crafted makeshift shelters and improvised tools. Slowly, they transformed the barren wasteland into a place where ideas could once again take root. Years passed, and the once solitary figure of Marcus became the leader of a thriving community. They traveled from one desolate town to the next, sharing their newfound knowledge, trading for supplies, and recruiting those who shared their vision. They faced challenges, battled against those who sought to hoard power, and mourned the loss of companions along the way. But with each victory, each new member of their growing family, they brought the promise of a new civilization closer to reality. Their journey was no longer just about survival, it was about rebuilding. They taught children the joy of reading, the art of engineering, the value of history, and the power of a well-crafted sentence. They built windmills to harness the endless wind, planted crops in the most unexpected places, and even managed to coax some life into the desolate earth. As they grew stronger, so did the whispers of their existence reach farther. The cleaning crew had not disappeared. Even though they only clean every decade, they were a bit hesitant to clean Earth this time around. Marcus knew that their time was limited thanks to the ancient history that plagued the previous generations, that the day would come when they would have to face the enemy that had once sought to erase them. Although the cleaning crew does not have a motive to hurt anybody, but to only exist as a vacuum cleaner for space, humanity was at stake once again. But Earth's defenses were not barren like last time. Today, its defenses are at an all-time high thanks to the knowledge of the ancient library. The cleaning crew grew more wary, so they coincidentally upped their fleet of ships, which they never do. Yet, in the quiet moments, Marcus couldn't help but wonder if their efforts would be enough. The cleaning crew was powerful, their technology far beyond anything he had ever seen. But he had something they didn't: the human spirit, the unquenchable thirst for knowledge, and the determination to ensure that the future was not written in the language of oblivion. The whispers grew louder, and the shadows on the horizon grew darker. But Marcus and his band of knowledge-bearers were ready. They had built a foundation of hope and wisdom, and no matter what lay ahead, they would not let it be forgotten. They were the guardians of the new dawn, the champions of humanity's second chance. And as they stood together, the USB stick in hand, they knew that even in the face of oblivion, they had the power to rise again and the knowledge to survive again. The cleaning crew's ships grew closer, their silent forms a stark contrast against the once blue sky. The air hummed with anticipation, the very earth seeming to hold its breath. Marcus called his people to the center of their makeshift camp. Readied with fearsome makeshift guns. They huddled around, eyes wide with fear but also determination, clutching their weapons. With a deep breath, Marcus plugged the USB stick into the knowledge pod, and the screens flickered to life, displaying the vast digital library they had salvaged. The words of the ancients spilled forth, a testament to the resilience of human thought. He looked around at his crew, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the screens. They were ready to fight, to protect what they had worked so hard to rebuild. The cleaning crew's ships descended, their cold, metallic forms casting long shadows across the landscape. Marcus raised his cane, a symbol of his journey and resolve. His crew followed suit, their improvised weapons at the ready. They knew they could not match the technology of the cleaning crew. But they had something far more potent: the power of the human mind, the very essence of what made them different from the lifeless machines that sought to destroy them. As the ships approached, Marcus spoke in a clear, firm voice that echoed through the wasteland. "We are the keepers of the knowledge that you wish to destroy. We are the seeds of humanity's rebirth, and we will not be silenced." His words were met with a roar from his people, a battle cry that shook the very ground beneath them. The ships paused, their sensors analyzing the scene before them. Marcus took advantage of the moment, transmitting to everyone to shoot. The ship stood steady, as if the weaponry that everyone crafted was utterly useless. And so the ship started to clean, powering up like a vacuum. Everyone's fears were realized. They knew everyone would soon turn to dust. But Marcus knew something else. Amidst the stress, his brain had a spark that became the antidote for humanity. "The vents! Block the vents!" screamed Marcus at the top of his lungs. "Block them!" Marcus couldn't have been happier with what he came up with, or rather, what he remembered reading in the library. He remembered that the 8th generation before him was also attacked by the cleaning crew, but they witnessed a crucial moment during the attack. During their cleansing, it was extremely windy. But that was still not a problem for the enemy ships, since they floated thanks to burning fuel, lots of fuel, as it's known just by looking at them. But on that windy day, they did witness one of the ships crash. Perplexed by such an outcome, everyone tried to analyze how that could have happened. And an engineer came to a conclusion. Since they burn fuel to float, they probably need a lot of fuel to keep themselves afloat. Just look how big they are. And to not waste room for thrusters, they figured it's best to just add more air to the fuel, since fires burn stronger the more oxygen is added. So that's why that one fell on the ground, since most likely its air vents got blocked by all of that crap that the wind brought. Kind of makes sense, right? I mean, look at the side of it, it's completely covered by leaves. The commander felt that the logic is sound, so he noted it in the library, not knowing how much it will help humanity 8 generations later. So Marcus and his team started grabbing everything they made. Their tents, their bags, their gadgets, even their weapons. It's now or never. Do or die. Life or death. Everyone agreed, without exchanging a single word, that this was the right answer. If everyone's going to die, why not at least try that crazy idea out? Said everyone to themselves when they heard Marcus command, and with a stroke of luck, or thanks to a stroke of knowledge, the ship started to slow down a bit, then a bit more, then they descended faster and faster until the first ship hit the ground, then the second, then the third and the rest of the fleet. The people cheered, their voices rising like a phoenix from the ashes. They had won, but the real victory was not in the fight against the ships. It was in the spark of curiosity that had been rekindled in their hearts, the flame of knowledge that had been passed from one generation to the next. Marcus looked around, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to write, and with every book, every conversation, every shared idea, they would ensure that humanity's story continued. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a warm, golden light that seemed to hold the promise of tomorrow. Marcus turned to his crew, the USB stick in his hand now a symbol of their triumph. "We have much work to do," he said, his voice filled with the quiet strength that had carried them through the darkest of days. "Let us go forth and spread the light of knowledge. For it is in the darkest of times that the stars shine the brightest," and with that, they set out once more, their footsteps echoing through the wasteland as they marched toward a future filled with hope, a future where the pages of the past would guide them to a new chapter, a future where the last library on Earth would become the first of many, and the whispers of the ancients would become the roar of a reborn civilization.